I've made a lot of notes and done a lot of research. Let's talk about Trump today.
I know what trending is better than anybody in the world. I've been trending my whole life. From the day I was born, I've been trending.
I like the good publicity and I like the bad publicity. It all plays.
What's up everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I want to talk about if you should still study in the US and actually go through this long process and invest your money in going to study in the US, even with all the news going around about the Trump administration, about immigration, about all the executive orders that are being signed. I realized that amongst all of this news and the distractions that are going around, most students and parents are missing out on the top 3 things that America has to offer. Before we get into the video, I quickly want to talk about my organization called Scholaroid Education. As you might know, I studied in the US on a full scholarship and I have helped more than 150 students to get full scholarships in the US. So if you're a high achieving student who is thinking about studying in the US, please check out the links in the description, visit my website, set up a call with me, and let's talk about how to actually help you get a full scholarship in the US. In 2016, when Trump ran for office, there were about 60% of prospective students who were actually thinking about studying in another country instead of America, only because of the fear of Trump coming to office. And this year, that number has reduced to 40%. But still, that's a lot of students all over the world who are scared about the Trump administration. But let's get into these 3 things that I think are still holding the American society together, and it will still be a great place for you to build a future. Number 1, it's the education quality in the US. The US has developed a network of more than 3,000 high-quality universities that actually offer some of the best education in the world, with professors that are from all over the world, with students that are very ambitious and are willing to study and put in the time with all the seriousness. And for you international students, when you move to the US, it's very important for you to be surrounded by these types of people to have a successful career. In the US, even if you go to a mid-tier university, I'm not even talking about the top 100 universities. Even if you go to a mid-tier university, it still holds a lot of value, not just in the US, but also outside of the US. For example, I had a friend who actually did an MBA from TCU, my university, and he worked on his OPT for 1 year. His MBA only had 1 year of OPT. But after working in the US for 1 year and getting an MBA from the US, he moved back to India and he was offered a job for around 3 lakh Indian rupees, so 300,000 Indian rupees, which is around 3,500 US dollars per month. Now, these types of salaries are actually unheard of in India. It is very difficult for someone in their 20s to get this type of salary in India. But only because he had US education, he had studied in the US and also had work experience in the US. From perhaps a mid-tier university, it actually helped him so much to get this type of job opportunity. Even though he couldn't live in the US, he's actually having a super high quality of life in India. Most companies outside of the US will actually really love to have you because you have been trained and educated in the US, even if you're not able to stay or if you perhaps don't like to stay in the US in the long term. I like to call this the America return tax, a tax that companies would pay to you as a salary for you having invested all the money and time to study in the US. Let's go to number 2. The second reason why you should still go to the US is that the US is a melting pot of diversity, of people from more than 180 countries. And not to mention, all of this diversity of the country also reflects in its universities. Universities in the US, I have myself maybe been to about 70 different US universities, and all universities that I've talked to have students from more than 100 countries, which in itself is a big benefit of studying in the US, because just by studying in that country, you are exposing yourself to friends and future colleagues from over 100 different countries just by putting yourself in that classroom. So it's pretty amazing. You're not only graduating with a degree, you're also graduating with a certificate in global education because you're going to be making friends from all around the world. Let's go to number 3. The US is known as the land of opportunity. Now, I want to break this down, not in a cliche manner. I've heard the word land of opportunities for a long time, and there's obviously different arguments about the American dream dying off and stuff. But let's talk about what does it mean to actually be a land of opportunity. If we really break it down in the most childish manner possible, it means that there is land and there is opportunity. Okay, let's go with that first. The US is so large that it takes about 6 hours on a plane to fly from the west coast to the east coast. And this means that in that one country, there is a lot of major cities. Now that brings me to the next point, the land of opportunity. So let's talk about the opportunity part. The opportunity here is that there are a number of major companies that have set up their headquarters in these US major cities. Okay, US cities are all over the country, and the number of opportunities will directly be proportionate to the major cities there, because cities are governed by financial movement, financial events, things that are happening. Now let's move on to talk numbers. The US has a GDP of around $27.7 trillion. The close second is China with $17 trillion, and the entirety of the European Union is estimated to be around $20 trillion. So the US is already a country which is extremely huge with its GDP. This is very important because when you are thinking about going as an international student, and let's say when you get a job, to be able to get a $100,000 salary in America is actually easier than most other countries, because for you to make that $100,000, the company will actually need to be rich, and that company, only if that company is actually able to make $2 billion per year, then they will be more than happy to pay you the $100,000. Now, this is a very interesting phenomenon to think about because it doesn't happen in all the countries. When you go to work in India, you cannot get $100,000 because the companies themselves are not making that much money that they can pay you a higher salary. So just by being in a country that has a huge GDP, you're able to give yourself a higher chance of getting a higher salary. And this salary is going to be in US dollars. The US dollar is, of course, the most powerful currency in the world at the moment. So let's take that you have 3 years of OPT after you graduate your degree in the US, and you make $100,000, which is actually very approachable even after a bachelor's or a master's degree. If you are a good student and you get a good job, $90,000 to $100,000 is a very approachable salary after a bachelor's or a master's as an international student. After you get this for 3 years, you get, let's say, $300,000. After taxes and expenses, maybe you end up saving 50% of this, which ends up to being $150,000. Worst case scenario, like I'm talking completely worst case scenario, if you have to leave America after these 3 years of your degree, you will still leave with $150,000 and US education and US work experience. Taking these 3 things together, you're already in the top 5% of the entire world. Most people in the world will actually not even be able to save $150,000 in their lifetime. And if you're able to do that in the first 3 years after you finish a degree, it is certainly worth actually going to the US. And yes, you will be investing money to get this degree, but that's a separate conversation. There is a number of different scholarships that are available, and I myself studied on a full scholarship, so I did not invest any money in the US. From day one, as soon as I start working, I got my benefits in positive. I was already in a profit, if you want to say that. So there is a number of scholarships and stuff available, and even if you do have to invest some money, it is worth it because it gives you that boost in your career that you can use for the rest of your life. I have friends that moved from the US back to their home countries, to Vietnam, to Brazil, to India, Nepal, a bunch of other countries, and they all performed very well in their home countries after studying in the US. Now, let's circle back to Trump and how all of this relates to Trump. At the end of the day, Trump is here for 4 more years. And what's going to matter is that you are building your life for the next 25 years. Presidents change every 4 years. However, these 3 things that I mentioned about America, the high quality of education, the diversity of people, and America being the land of opportunities, these 3 things are some things that are built on American values. It's built on the American society for the last 200 years. It's not something which is going to change with one president for 4 years being in the White House. But what matters the most is for you to actually take that first step. Take the first step to go to the US and then wait for all the wonders to happen. That's all I really wanted to say, and I hope that this video helps you a little bit. If you are preparing for your education in the US, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and check out my website. I've helped more than 150 students to get a full scholarship, and I would love to work with you and help you achieve your study abroad goals.